Okay, welcome. My name is Anita Harriet. I'm president of the Fine Art Group. Thank you so much for joining us today for State of the Art Market. This has been an unbelievable season. We have had a team of about 16 here viewing all of the auctions, and already it's become a drama show and extremely exciting. So I'd like to introduce my colleagues. Morgan Long. Morgan, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Morgan Long. I'm Managing Director of the group based out of London. I'm a post-war contemporary specialist, and obviously this week we've seen, as Anita was saying, a lot of fireworks already, and a lot of things that I think were a little bit unexpected. So part of my job is working with our clients to track these things. I handle some of our advisory clients as well, a lot of the agency, and working alongside our global team to make sure that everything is kind of covered this week in terms of our clients, our needs, the market. It's really exciting. We've got fairs this week. We have TAFAF. We have Frieze coming up next week. So it's a lot on, and what I do is all part and parcel of that.
Okay, and I'd like to introduce you to Elena Racheva. Elena.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Elena. I'm based in New York. I'm an advisory director, and I work with our clients within the Impressionist and modern space. Just as Morgan said, it's been a tremendous couple of weeks here in New York. There's so much going on, and we are really excited to share some of these exciting developments with you.
Just a little bit about us before we begin. We're the Fine Art Group. As a firm, we're a fully vertically integrated firm. Essentially what that means is our job is to manage the entire ecosystem of the art and collectibles world for our clients. We, as a firm, have 5 core businesses. We have appraisals, which is essentially our job is to understand the value of our clients' collections. And we really believe that an audit of your collection or understanding value allows you to create strategy around your collections. We have a full advisory team, of which Morgan and Elena are both directors on the team, with a deep bench and a deep knowledge, with our focus specifically on due diligence for our clients. We always represent the client. We are always independent, and we're always there to make sure they acquire the highest quality material. We also have a sales agency division, and our job is to assist clients with the sales of their collections. And we are really quarterbacks for that process. Sometimes we're in the boxing ring as well, but our job is to ensure a really successful sale for our clients' collections. We also have a finance division in which we assist clients when they want to create some liquidity from their collections. It's our lending business. And certainly not last but not least, we have an investment division. And most of you may know us from our investment portfolio. We've had several investment funds. Morgan's been very involved since the beginning. And again, that's the entire ecosystem of the art world. Thank you. And again, we have Morgan, Anita, and myself. On to the next. Okay, now we can actually start talking about what's important. Now, I know we don't want to look at the past, but I think we need to. Because when we look back to November, we started to see some inklings of what was coming in the art world. Now, most of us, when COVID hit, we did not know what was going to happen, right? We assumed that the art market would collapse. And actually, we saw the exact opposite, right? Online sales exploded. We saw the emergence of a real interest in new contemporary or ultra-contemporary artists. And November was the moment when all of this pent-up desire to sell great collections began to bear some fruit. So hence, just a quick little sense of what happened in November, which is very much related to what's happening right now. Maclo sale emerged, and we saw an incredible sale. We also saw over $1 billion of art traded in November. And we're going to see a lot more than that in the sales.
I think we're almost at double, aren't we?
We are almost at double.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. One of the most interesting developments, which we're going to be commenting on in just a second, was the emergence of, and we don't know what to call them, frankly, but we're calling them the young contemporary, the ultra contemporary. You're going to see all of this terminology for these groups of artists. But look at this graph. We saw a huge increase in artists that may not have had significant exhibitions, certainly have not had major retrospectives, may not be collected in major museums, may only be held by a few major collectors, but the prices, right, very low estimates, massive sales prices. And as we look at the sales last night, we will be returning to the same. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the single owner sales scenario. Now, we all know, and we're all have had a lot of experience in the auction world, that single owner sales are powerful. And they're powerful for several reasons. One of the reasons is that we're seeing, a lot of the times we'll see artwork that has never come to the market before. But in addition to that, there's a story. So let's take a little walk through the single owner sales, which are featured in the sales coming up. And we've already started to see this kind of emerge. Let's start. Take us through the Surrealist sale.
Sure. So in the top right of your screen, you have this extraordinary photograph by Man Ray, which is the centerpiece of the Rosa Melvin Jacobs collection. This is a collection that's selling at Christie's, and together the collection total is between 30 and 50 million. And what's very special about this group of works, they're the product of decades of passionate collecting by this New York couple who got really involved in the surrealist space. They became really close friends with Man Ray. And this work in particular is poised to become the most valuable photograph ever to sell at auction. It will by far exceed the auction record for a Man Ray in a photograph, which is currently at $3 million. The reason for that is, first of all, provenance and rarity. Those are the sort of couple of the talking points. Provenance. As I said, that the Jacobs couple were very close to Man Ray, and they acquired a lot directly from the artist. This is a work that was made in 1924, and it depicts the artist's lover and muse, Kiki de Montparnasse, who is a really important model and muse for a number of artists in Paris at this time. And this work stayed in the Man Ray collection. He kept it until the 60s, when it was gifted to the Jacobs, entered the Jacobs collection. What's special about this work is this mixture of showing off his great photography technique and innovation. So you have the rayograph technique, which is the burnishing of the F-holes forms on the back of the model's back. And this is achieved through this very innovative approach of cutting out a very sort of heavy card, laying it on top of photosensitive paper and projecting light onto it. And then on top of that, projecting a negative light. So this kind of layering innovation. It's super technical.
Yeah, and also, but incredibly beautiful. You know, you walk into Christie's, you see where they've displayed the Jacobs collection, and this thing just hits you across the wall.
Yeah,
it's got so much power.
It's extraordinary. And what's interesting is this is the sort of the template for every other print of this form. So this is the original one. You know, with photography, there is a lot of questions that collectors have about the object, the uniqueness of the object, and the addition. And this is a unique piece. The only other one that's like this is at the Pompidou in Paris. So you're getting a sense of why this is important.
How small is this market?
This is quite a select market. The surrealist market is quite select. Having said that, this is such an important work in the surrealist sort of body of work. I think that the importance of this work extends beyond surrealist collectors. So while the group as a whole is extraordinary and it will achieve some great prices for individual works and artists as a whole, I think that collectors will be looking at this work regardless of their photography interest.
Okay, take us through the next sale, Elena.
If we go back to the
go
previous slide. So the sale, the work on the lower right is this wonderful Claude Monet. It's a London subject, which is rare to market. The last one came up about 5 years ago. It's coming from the collection of Anne Bass. So Anne Bass is a Texan philanthropist, investor, art collector that passed away. Essentially, this was the centerpiece of her beautiful Park Avenue apartment, flanked by two extraordinary Mark Rothko paintings. What's extraordinary extraordinary is this is a late Monet from turn of the century, and it just has all the hallmarks of the very best of his late style. So I'm excited to see how this performs, and I think that we'll talk a little bit about the Monet market later on.
There are more Monets in that sale, aren't there?
It's an embarrassment of riches. There is so much Monet available, and high quality Monet available in the market right now. But yes, this is the one on the right is selling on Thursday, and we're tracking it very carefully.
I really feel like this work is going to cross into a post-war contemporary buyer.
Well, it looks the way they framed it. Christie's has displayed it exactly how it was displayed. Well, not exactly. It's obviously not an apartment. It's a Christie's. Was on view the past couple of weeks with the Rothkos flanking it. So it just added that extra dimension to it. So a contemporary collector can visualize, what it would look like in a contemporary set.
Yeah. Okay. Now you take us through the
Okay.
to amazing sales.
Well, first off, I won't talk about what has been sold yet. I'll get to that in a second. But if we look at the photorealist Richter, which is just another picture that you can get completely lost in, it's a huge scale. This is coming up at Sotheby's, coming up on Monday night. So this is part of the part 2 of the Mathlo sale. So we saw part 1, as Anita already mentioned, was sold to huge numbers in November at Sotheby's. And so this is the second part. And, they carefully split up the works. They had this was a sale that was like a lot of these private collections. 2 years in the coming, you really wanted to make sure that people could get in front of these pictures. You wanted to make sure that the market was there because it's really high value, really great A+ works. So, photorealist Richters have always slightly lagged behind what we'll just, for the sake of simplicity, call the squeegee pictures. There was one sold last night at Christie's, I think, that came in somewhere around $36 or $37 million, including all the fees. So this will be really interesting to see if this hits at the price that I think it should achieve. It's just absolutely as good as it gets for these kind of things. And the Mathlo sale achieved such great acclaim in November. We'll see how the second part does. It's not always easy to split these things up. There's a decision. Do you run with the train on the first time? Is it going to be as strong the second part around? So that's what Sotheby's have coming up on Monday night. I encourage anybody who's here in New York, you have plenty of time to still see these things. Christie's, unfortunately, a lot of the lots that we're talking about have a limited amount of time, but please, there's just amazing museum quality work here on view. Run down, walk to either Christie's today, Sotheby's, if you were here in New York. If not, I'm sorry, we're tempting you with all these pieces. Anyhow, it's too late to see the Andy Warhol, which you'll see on screen. That was sold on Monday night here in New York as part of the Doris and Thomas Amann collection. So this was an absolutely, trumpeted piece. It went out, it was the collection, the private collection of some legendary dealers and collectors and tastemakers. All the works in this grouping. And so they had a part 1 and they've got day sale. There's a large amount of material, but it was all being sold for charity. So that's a really important element to look at when you're having these things come up. They did an amazing part, which, as you can see on screen, for this Warhol, 100% of the proceeds are going to charity. But whoever bought this, and we now know that it was Larry Gagosian, the amazing mega dealer, who was either bidding, we don't know, on his own behalf, on behalf of the client, but whoever is the ultimate owner of that piece also gets to choose where 20% of the proceeds are going to. This philanthropic side is something that we at the Fine Art Group talk about a lot. We're helping a lot of our clients decide things for the future, for their families, on where these things should go. It's an important part of collecting, that legacy and giving something back at the end of the day. And it'll help a lot of people with that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, question. Are you a little disappointed with the sales?
Well, this yes and no. This piece was extremely bold. You never see a picture at this level coming in without a guarantee. It went in without a guarantee, which I think is a pretty strong maneuver. The market price, they said it was around 200 million, and all in, it sold for just a tiny sliver short of 200 million. I did think actually it was going to go a little bit higher. It's incredibly rare. There are so few of these. In fact, I don't know if there are any more in private hands.
How many
At the end
people
of the
had,
day.
how many people had bets over this? I know.
I mean, everybody.
Turned to be
I lost. I thought it was going to go higher. I will be completely frank and say I thought it was going to go a bit more. Christie's, at the end of the day, they had 5 bidders on this. 3 people put their hands in the air, one of which was Larry Gagosian. So there were other people active on the phones. We really thought that this could go, the big distance, but this is it's a very large amount of money at the end of the day.
Yes.
So, I think that there was a little bit of a, oh, okay. But then if you take a step back and think about it, this was a huge prize.
Yeah.
And it was a great achievement. And, as a single owner sale, the Doris and Thomas and Mine collection had a lot of what we call very niche things. It's a collection at the end of the day. This wasn't something put together to put out into the marketplace. This is private material. And so that's the interesting thing about these single owner sales. Sometimes they're not necessarily the most commercial things. The Jacobs collection is very personal. With our other hats on, Elaine and I are working very closely together on putting another single owner sale, which is the Masterpieces of the Ilana collection, which is coming up here in New York in June. And, it's working with these families to craft things and to put things back out into the market. It's a very extraordinary thing to do because you're taking something that was very personal. So this collection was personal. This Warhol was the showstopper of the collection. And, I think Christie's, they set the week off really well with it. And
All right, you're an optimist.
I am an optimist.
Well, all right, well, let's get down and dirty. Let's really dig into these sales. So,
Monet.
story of the Monet. So
Yes.
luckily we have you, Elena, so you can opine on these.
Wait, there are more.
We just
Okay,
talked
go
about
on.
Monet.
And then there's another one.
So many. So these are just three, but I could actually, I could go on and on about Monet. So Anita and Morgan will get very bored.
We have to
But
keep her under control.
trust me. Yes, I was sort of reviewing the sales and I realized, goodness, this is like a Monet exhibition. There is no less than, I think there is about $210 million of significant
Hang
Monet.
on, that's one more hole.
Yeah, right. But for one Warhol, you could have 6 phenomenal. You could have a retro. You can have.
You can have a museum quality room in your home.
Yes,
of Monet.
And it's true. And so we looked at the London picture, right? The gorgeous sunset. We've got a very late Venetian picture on the left. It's coming fresh from a private collection selling at Sotheby's. And I loved how they showed it in Venice during the Venice Biennale. That was a wonderful move on their part. And then we have the poplars and the water lilies from the Bass collection. And to Morgan's point, Christie's have this phenomenal space that they've created. It's a vision. It's art is experience, as we like to say. And what's really sad is my favorite picture. I'm not even showing you right now.
No, it's my favorite too. We talked about this already. It's my favorite too.
Yes. So being like an impressionist geek, this picture is this beautiful snow scene by Monet a year after the first impressionist exhibition. It's sublime. It's 18 to 25 million.
Which compared to me, it's like a bargain.
Yes, it didn't make it here because it's under 20 million, but it's phenomenal. What's interesting is you might think, is there a risk to showing so many works in the market? First of all, it's sometimes when works that come up. I mean, a couple of these are the result of estates coming to market. So it can't always control that. When several estates come up at the same time, you may not be able to. You may not be able to actually control that. However, what's key is that every single one of these major works is a different subject from Monet.
They don't really compete at the end
They
of the day,
don't
do they?
compete. They
No.
don't compete. You've got your water lilies, you've got your Venetian subject, you've got London, you've got the poplars. We're missing haystacks right now. Obviously, haystacks holds the highest price for a Monet at auction, just over 100 million. But yeah, I think it's an embarrassment of riches. And to Morgan's point, come and see this works in New York right now. It's really extraordinary.
Here's my question. So do you think, and I know I mentioned this before, but we have worked with a lot of our post-war and contemporary collectors, and God knows with some of these young contemporary who are looking to Monet and Van Gogh and Matisse. Do you think Monet is an integral part of any post-war and contemporary collection? I'm going to ask you, Morgan, put you on the spot. Should a post-war and contemporary collector own a Monet? And if so, why?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm going to say almost no, actually. I mean, it's slightly controversial, but I think the way that Monet, and this is going to sound really bad, but the way that Monet handled and treated paint, if you put this on your wall with a lot of this, especially younger contemporary work, it's just going to be like, why did I pay $2 million for that when I could have paid $10 million for this? It just shows it. Like the paint handling of Monet, I think it's going to make most contemporary things look cheap, look not to the same quality. And I know maybe this is comparing painting and painting. You know, a lot of the contemporary artworks that we advise people on are different media. And I think there are certain things that can really hold their own with a Monet. Richter is probably one of the few painters who could hold his own. You know, that seascape, you could put it up with one of these and you go, oh my God, yeah, Richter it was an amazing paint handler. But most of the stuff we see these days, I'm a little bit concerned.
Elena, you'd
have to regret.
drop into the boxing ring. So I disagree with Morgan completely.
I think there is a bit of a differentiation, right? So you've got your very contemporary artists, but you have that amazing Joan Mitchell that is looking
Yeah, but I'm not counting Joan
Yeah,
Mitchell.
right.
I'm talking about
So-
the young stuff.
right.
Okay.
Because I'm looking at like 1900. So to me, you know, a 60s, 70s work, I think that Mitchell is fabulous.
Yeah,
with that,
yeah.
I look at this poplars and I think of some of Shara Hughes' work. I kind of used the
No, I
fire,
don't, unfortunately.
but the height of it is different.
It's
right.
so different,
You're
the
right.
handling.
You're
Like,
right.
I think Monet makes everybody else look like third, fourth, fifth, sixth tier, and that's the problem.
Well, hence, I really believe you need a foundation to every collection, and why not start with the best? So let's dive into the sales now. Enough of this. It's Sotheby's is coming up. It's going to be so exciting. So let me tell you how we're going to have this part of our conversation. The first thing that I think is really important to discuss is how we look at works and why we choose the works we choose. When we are working with our clients, we look at categories of analysis which help us to really figure out value, quality. So as we analyze these artists, we're asking the following questions. One, who is the artist? Why is this artist so important? Why is this subject matter essential? Is this medium the kind of penultimate medium as it relates to the artist? Is the date significant for this particular work? Has this work shown at any important exhibitions? Is there literature, provenance, these single owner sales? Who own these works? And the real question, have they come to sale before? And what did they sell for? So those are the kinds of questions we ask when we look at any work of art. All right, now we are going to be looking at works above 2 million and works below 1 million in each of the sales. All right, so one at a time, let us begin. Take us through this Pablo Picasso. Why have you chosen this particular one that looks like an octopus?
This is an extraordinary painting. And to Anita's point, we really are looking at these criteria of analysis, and it's really about museum quality works. And in this case, this is such a work. So I was listening to our conversation about the Marilyn, and part of me, the impressionist and modern part, was kind of secretly happy that it only picked Picasso's auction record for a 20th century work by about 15 million. So sad it went over it. Pablo Picasso used to hold the auction record for a work, you know, sold at auction, and with good reason. I think that you see so many of the post-war artists today, and their work always ties in to Picasso's work. You look at Kondo, you look at Schutz, you know, their work wouldn't be where it was without Picasso. Now, this is a 1932 Picasso, Marie-Thérèse Walter. It's part of a body of work that he started in the early 30s, and he refined. This is not the most commercial of Picasso's, of Marie-Thérèse, but it's so beautiful. It's very sculptural. It speaks to the important work that he was doing in sculpture at his studio in Bois-Geloup in the 1930-32, exactly that summer. So it's unusual, and it's pretty impressive in size. So the estimate is robust, but it's extremely well deserved, and I hope to see it do very, very well. Really striking.
Okay, so this is a major contrast. Tell me, why the cats?
This picture has been getting a lot of, first off, you go and it's a huge picture, which for Cats, who, you know, he's entering his 90 something now. He's got a Guggenheim retrospective coming up. This is probably the best picture of his to come to market in quite a few years. It's 1970s. It evokes everything that you want from Alex Katz. You know, you've got what I love about it is the green shirt. It's showing it's a 70s kind of picture. You know, it's got a bit of a thing going on. But you've got that absolutely beautiful female form. You've got the contrast, the color contrast here. It's sharp. It's evocative of the time period. And I mean, quite frankly, Alex Katz is completely undervalued and has been for years and years. So I think this is going to perform well over the estimate. I think it is something that a lot of people have been looking at, and I think this is the time for Katz to really shine. But can I just go back to Picasso for 1 minute? This is something every contemporary collector should have. Absolutely. You know, if you're going to be spending $50 million on a picture, this is the kind of thing. And I think that you know, we're talking about Warhol, we're talking about Picasso. Picasso and Warhol are so tied in together, and how they produced and how Warhol was looking at so much of what he did. I love this. This is really as good as it gets.
Okay, so maybe you need to become a modern impressionist specialist. Just because. Okay, now we're looking now at Christie's. We've already seen some of the sales come up at Christie's. You're blowing my mind, Elena, by choosing this particular painting. I thought you were a modern impressionist specialist with a European focus, but apparently you're an American specialist too. Tell me why in God's name Washington crossing the Delaware?
Why are we showing an 1851 picture in the Christie's modern sale, 20th century sale? I think that this is one of those pictures that speaks to the kind of the identity of a nation. And it's extraordinary speaking to so many collectors and colleagues who are so moved by this work. It's obviously one of two. The other one is in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's not going anywhere else. You know, it's rare to see a depiction of George Washington in action at a pivotal point in the War of Independence. Why is this work in the context of a 20th century sale? To give it the platform and importance it deserves, and to actually show that this work transcends the 19th century market, painting market. It transcends the American paintings market. I think this is an iconic picture that transcends the fine art market. You're looking really at, you know, the example of the US Constitution that sold in the fall for over $40 million. You know, the kind of collectors that are looking at this work are not necessarily even fine art collectors.
Didn't this hang in the White House for years?
It did. It has the most extraordinary provenance and exhibition history. It was at the Crystal Palace exhibition in the 1850s, which to a lot of American collectors is very meaningful. It was at the White House for 30 years. It was in key collections, private collections. It's fresh to market. It last changed hands publicly in the 70s when it actually set an auction record for an American painting sold at auction. But actually, it's so exciting to see this come up to market, and it's going to be a little bit of an outlier and a wild card. I mean, the artist himself, his top price is just under $5 million, which is actually quite significant for a painter who's not a such a name.
How did they come up with this estimate? Where did it, you know, what did it come out of it? Other sales or other depictions of George Washington?
It's a real mix. It's definitely other depictions of George Washington, but it really is key paintings within the American artistic canon. So you've got Eakins' Rose Clinic, which is a really, really high price point, a private sale that is recorded at just over 60 million. You have several Asher B. Durans that were trading in the $30 to $40 million range. You have important depictions of Washington by Peel and Stewart that are trading in the $10 to $20 million range. But note that with all of those George Washington portraits, those portraits are one of 6. 1 of 8 of that time. And there of this particular composition, there's only 2. There was a third one that sadly perished during the Second World War. So yeah.
So does this look familiar to you from November?
It certainly does.
It
absolutely is. So you had another, you had a slightly a version of this that hit an absolutely top record price with Robert Colescott, which, as we know, was purchased by George Lucas, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, the question is whether he's going to want the original of what he has. I mean, personally, I think they're really interesting to take, you know, a contemporary artist who's essentially riffing off and changing culturally the connotations of Washington crossing the Delaware. So to have both of them together, I think would be hugely impactful.
And what do you think, Elena? Is this going to make some crazy numbers?
It's hard to tell. I think it may do. It just really depends on who's becoming involved in it. I think it may well do. So we're watching it very closely So, have a look, the 20th century evening sale.
Or 20th dipping backwards for one piece and
Yeah.
then back up again. Okay, now here's another iconic, very important artist. Tell me, I think there are a couple targets in the sale, correct?
There are, and this is one of two major pieces that's coming up this week. Kind of going back to the Alex Katz, we're talking about artists who've been historically undervalued. Kenneth Noland is one. He's kind of falls into the color field school. This is a really great date on this picture. It's 1959. What I really like about this, there's another big picture coming up at Sotheby's, which is more of a very straightforward target painting. What I like about this is it really brings in that kind of Abex feel to it. And I think, that there are people who've been spending a lot of money currently on Frankenthaler. We've got a lot of clients been looking at that. A lot of clients looking at Joan Mitchell. So the more the Abex painters. And I think this could really appeal to some of the collectors who are mixing across. It's very beautifully done. It's a very large scale and it's in fantastic condition. So that's exactly what we always want when we're advising our clients.
And do you feel like it'll be in the estimate range?
I think, the record for Noland, I think all in is somewhere just over 4 million. So I'd be disappointed if this or the other picture on the back of it didn't set the new record. So I think probably if you did want to get this, you'd be looking towards the higher end of the estimate. And it's absolutely worth it. I think he's deeply, deeply undervalued still.
Okay, well, great. All right, now Phillips. Poor Phillips. We haven't talked about Phillips at all, and it's actually quite a tremendous sale. I
think it's their largest sale that they've ever put together.
Yeah, terrific. So Kusama, everyone who's important has a Kusama, and there are frankly not that many in the sale.
No, for once. And sometimes we see quite a few coming up. We saw a few in the Sotheby's just had a Hong Kong sale where there were a few very strong prices for Kusama. In London the other day at Bonham, something very small that size sold for an astronomical amount of money. The reason that we've included this in here is that, well, Kusama, first off, it's so recognizable. This is one of her classic infinity nets. It's a series of work that she was creating throughout her entire life. You can still buy them on the primary market, recent works. But this same date, interestingly, as Kenneth Noland, this is 1959. And I'm sorry it doesn't come across very well on the screen, but it just looks like it's covered in frosting. The impasto on it is so thick. It also has a really interesting provenance. Kusama was very good friends with a lot of other artists while she was working. She lived here in New York way back in the day. And this was actually gifted by Kusama. Actually, it wasn't gifted, it was a trade with the wonderful artist Günter Ucker. And so this was held by Günter Ucker for a really long time. In fact, only recently, I believe he sold it, and then it's come back to the market. This is the first time the picture's coming up at auction. I would be disappointed if this didn't at least double, if not triple the estimate.
Well, it kind of reminds me, as you said, like it doesn't show that well on screen. Sadly, many of the artworks that are selling for astronomical prices have to look really good on screen, which brings me to this Pablo Picasso. One could not look at the size and maybe think it's a large work and they're getting the best deal on earth, because it sure does show great on screen. I know you're obsessed with Picasso, but why do I want to buy a little painting that's the size of a postcard?
This is a tiny jewel of a painting at 6x9 or something like that, with tremendous impasto, by the way. This is on panel. So with panel, you see this amazing texture of the pigment really come through. Anita, you're right. I have two Picassos. It's really embarrassing. But I think that
And 4 bonus.
it's terrible. It's really bad. I'm sorry. No, I'm going to diversify, I promise. No, but for now, this is such a good contrast between, with the $50 million Picasso, the same sitter. This is also Marie-Thérèse Walter. This is a tiny but very complex interior composition. This is actually the kind of palette that you really admire from Marie-Thérèse Walter depictions by Picasso. Those gorgeous lilacs, the yellows, the greens, this kind of lyrical, beautiful color palette is what is commercial. Remember, we were talking about this sculptural octopus-like Marie-Thérèse, like a bather striding across the beach. This is that kind of introspective Marie-Thérèse Walter. The $4 to $6 million estimate is extraordinary. Seeing a beautiful Marie-Thérèse Walter portrait, you can't really get one for less than 10 million, a good one. So I think to get a gorgeous depiction of an interior, of a plant pot still life, look at that yellow chair reminding me of Van Gogh. You have two depictions of Marie-Thérèse Walter. This is rare. This is not her friend. This is actually her from a different point of view, which makes me think of Picasso's Cubist period, showing the same object in different ways. It's just a really approachable size and estimate. I think that's what's really nice about it. And
So you're saying that getting like 3 Picassos for the price of one in here,
I think you
packed into
are.
a tiny, tiny, tiny size.
I think you are. And I think with that kind of size, I think you have to be careful. You know, size is one of these criteria of analysis we always look at when we look for our clients. And I think there is certain pieces of a certain size that will always stay within a certain range when it comes to the market. However, this is just such a robust investment because it ticks every single box. You know, it has amazing date, amazing subject matter, beautiful execution. So yeah, this is one that I'm really excited. This is a coup for so I'm pleased that they got that.
Absolutely. All right, now, all of us can take out our checks. We're below $1 million. We can buy, without any thought whatsoever. And I'm really surprised by your two choices. So,
It couldn't be more different.
they,
Well, actually, a lot of our slides have been quite different. This is really different.
all right, so tell me,
Actually, there's a similarity between the two.
tell me more.
So both of these artists have been exhibited during the Venice Biennale.
All right.
So Kay Sage was showcased in the Peggy Guggenheim Collection's wonderful female surrealist show. And Stanley Whitney, who's a living artist, has a very large exhibition in one of those gorgeous palazzos on the Grand Canal, showcasing some of his historical work. So
There's another similarity, same estimate. So there we go.
We're going to play the either or. Let me launch into Stanley Whitney. So Stanley Whitney is a living artist. He's represented by Listen Gallery, amongst others. He is very, very widely sought after currently. This is really unique to come to market because it's a piece from the 90s. So his pieces, as they progress, the more recent work is more color blocks. But this is really showing the gesture. It's a beautiful size. This is a pretty strong estimate, but I think it's absolutely worth it. I think there's going to be a lot of global demand for this piece. And it really showcases well with what a lot of people were lucky enough to see in Venice, which was that early work, which you don't necessarily see in a lot of places. And same thing with the Kay Sage. I'll let Elena talk about that. But
So you brought an important point with date. I mean, because he really has produced a lot.
he has, but it's not. He has. It's still not easy to find it. He's one of those artists that people are holding on to. There are not necessarily a lot of works coming to market, despite the fact that, as you say, he did widely produce. For years and years, he was a jobbing artist. He worked hard, and it's only in recent years that he's getting the acclaim that his work deserves, which we're seeing with a lot of these artists. Again, Kay Sage, we're finally seeing the acclaim that her work deserves. This is an absolutely beautiful picture. I'll let you talk about that one.
With Sage, I chose Sage because I think that she's one of those artists where the market is absolutely moving, as we were just saying. The reason for that is twofold. First of all, her prices are just kind of underperforming. Traditionally, she hasn't been as widely collected as her male counterparts. She was famously an American who went to Paris, worked with the surrealist group Yves Tanguy. The two of them moved back to America together. So you see her work is really deeply influenced by that group, but giving it her own sensibility. But if you look at the surrealist market, you've got an extraordinary price that was just set earlier this year, over 70 million from Magritte. And Kay Sage's auction, world record is just under 8 million. Now, there are less than 50 works that have come up by her at auction on the marketplace. So that's partly to do with supply, demand, is that push and pull that makes the market. But what is clear is that there has been some phenomenal artists like Leonore Fini, like Leonora Carrington, like Kay Sage's works that have been coming up. Private and institutional collectors are fiercely competing for these because collectors are realizing that their collections need to be diversified. They need to have really great examples by these key figures from the surrealist movement that are women. I think after with the ABEX movement, there's so many more women that get involved in the art world and in the market. But really, up until the 50s or 60s, you do have this, the surrealist movement in Paris, of course, was quite a male-centric environment, but yes.
So discussion for another time.
Another time, yeah.
So for this work, do you think it's going to sell as an estimate, or do you think it will achieve some? I see a dialogue almost with Georgia O'Keeffe there as well. But do you think this will achieve some crazy number, or do you think it'll be kind of in the realm?
I hope that it actually does really, really well. So interestingly, this is a $600,000 to $800,000 work that's been put, is actually being showcased in the Sotheby's evening sale, which shows you a lot about how they're positioning this work and they're signaling the importance of this piece. I would be surprised if it's all within estimate, and I think that it would be a steal with an estimate.
Yeah, but this is going to go, I think, well above the estimate, and same with the Stanley Whitney.
Mhm.
Oh my God, Elena, you have two Picassos. You've discussed two Man Rays. You're a woman of pattern, so I'm going to start, therefore, with a Lynn Drexler.
Yes.
So I'm obsessed. Tell me more.
Yeah, this is the second Lynn Drexler work to come up at auction recently. You know, there was one in November. It had a very low estimate, I think about 40 to 60, and sold, including all fees, for about $1.2 million. So we have high expectations that this piece, which is absolutely beautiful in person, will do the same. Both of the works were deaccessioned from a museum in Maine. We are seeing, interestingly, this season a little bit less, but there is a major Matisse, Matisse. Yeah, so it's deaccessioned from. It's coming up Christie's tomorrow night.
Yes,
exactly. So we have seen a lot of these things recently. Museums need the funding. This is a relatively modest museum in Maine, and this will, allow them to be buying some of the younger artists moving forward. But this is an artist who, for years and years, toiled away in obscurity on an island in Maine, and as we've seen with the female surrealists, we're looking back towards the female kind of abstract expressionists, and a lot of these women who didn't have representation, didn't have sales prices. Interestingly, I saw that these were donated from her estate to the Farnsworth, and who is selling them. I'm assuming they probably have quite a few more tucked away, because why would you want to release out to the wild some gorgeous pictures like these? But it's really important to clock that these are pieces that, compared to a lot of the other female painters during the time period, her prices are still very, very modest in comparison. So I know we've had some clients looking at this picture. I think there's going to be a lot of competition for this. And
Are you angry? I'm angry at the estimate. Are you angry at the estimate?
Well,
What kind of manipulation is that?
I think they put the estimate in place in November when they had the other piece. So there were two pieces. They put them in at low estimates. It is a difficult conversation to have with a client when they're saying, well, if you think I should be bidding over $1 million, why is this only estimated at 70 to 100? I think the next time we see one of these coming up, the estimate will reflect the fact that you've seen some of these prices, but there just hasn't been anything else for years. If you look past last November, I think the highest price that she was selling was in the single, the 6,000, 2,000s, regional auction houses. So to do that and to make that huge jump in that space of time, interestingly, that is something we're seeing for some of these younger contemporary artists. We are seeing things that primary market would cost 100,000, but yet suddenly they're in an estimate of 2 million. Hopefully then we'll be there soon.
Well, I mean, I hate it's tacky and horrible to say, but I think this is the season of digestible art, meaning art that's just beautiful.
Yeah,
right?
it is. But it's as Elena said, it's an embarrassment of riches. It's really hard to focus, but this is our job, is to help our clients focus and to point them towards things that we think have lasting value, and that will be just important parts of their collections.
Okay, here we go again. Man Ray, we know how important this particular technique was. Is this Man Ray very, very important? Will it sell within the estimate?
I think the estimate is positioned appropriately. However, if it does sell within that estimate, it would be a huge steal. It's coming from the Jacobs collection. So thinking about those kind of key points when looking at artwork, impeccable provenance. It went directly from Man Ray to the Jacobs family, and it's been there ever since. It's the auction record for Man Ray Rayograph is just over $1 million. And this is one of those really, really good examples that I think hopefully should do far in excess of that estimate. I mean, I think we keep going back to the technical prowess of these artists. And the reason why I chose this is it's such a visionary kind of body of work. This extraordinary manipulation of objects and shining a light on photosensitive paper. It's revolutionary. Interestingly, Rayograph is a sort of a little moniker mixing the name of Ray and photograph. So, Man Ray, he really was this wonderful artist, and I think the quality and the integrity of the artwork is what I'm really focusing on here. And you know, you're talking about really picking artists and going in depth.
Yeah.
I think that's what we do like to think about when we're putting clients' collections together, and really understanding the genesis of a particular technique, the genesis of an artist, and how what their process is like. I think that's what
But this also could be a piece for a client who doesn't have the budget for the previous piece that we were looking at, but really does want to start collecting and investing in Memories work. So it's a great alternative.
absolutely.
Okay, now, we have here, I know you're gonna say this, the theme of all themes, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I have to say that it was this Nelson that started me on the track. So interestingly, a lot of the artworks that I've been talking about today are artists that are from Maine, and where Anita and I both have spent many years of our lives. And Louise Nevelson just kind of kicked it off in my head, because she's actually a secret Mainer. You know, she has this amazing career. She lived here in New York for years and years. But again, she was brought to Maine, I think, when she was a small child and raised there, and then probably never went back after she saw New York City.
Well, you know, we can actually.
And also Reggie Grossart, the same thing. Living, working in Maine, about to have a huge museum retrospective for the first time in Maine this summer.
Well, we actually have a sales record from yesterday, I believe, for the artist. So is that giving us a little hint of what's to come?
I think so, yeah. This is the one last night, I think was what, $700,000 all in. There's one in London that sold recently for about 350,000 pounds. I think that, again, this picture will do incredibly well. Phillips have a really good selection. This is kind of what they do so well, which is bringing some of these artists that have never been to auction before, showcasing them, putting them into positions. You know, they've got that amazing Basquiat picture as well. You know, they've got some incredible masterpieces, and alongside it, you know, you have this picture which has this wonderful kind of chalky surface technique to it. I was also a big fan of the picture that sold last night at Christie's. So I think a lot of people, based on the back of that, will be looking at this picture and kind of looking up to see what his work is and what he's like and how to get it, which is difficult. So if you want one, auction might be your best bet coming up next week.
I'm sure the underbidder will be refocusing his
Underbidders.
Yes,
Underbidders.
yes, on this work. Okay, so I'm obsessed with Louise Nevelson. I feel she's so undervalued, but she did produce quite a lot. I guess quality is the goal with Nevelson. So tell me why you chose that. There are quite a few Nevelsons in the sales. So why did you choose this one?
There are so many Nevelsons, and like you, I'm a huge fan of Louise Nevelson. And even though I'm traditionally focused on earlier artists, I chose this because this has so much presence, and I think the compositional elements are beautifully put together. It has this kind of almost like a Stella, you know, like a little bit like a Hepworth, that monolithic feel to it. I love her work. I'm really drawn to the fact that she was so interested in kind of the ready-made assemblage. I think that I love Perch Fitters, and I think that her work is very heavily influenced by him. I'm very curious to see how her market performs after the Venice Biennale.
Yeah, I saw that show last week. It was absolutely beautifully presented. But as you say, it was a large show. You went through it, you kind of like, okay, you start to get the feeling that she was, as we're saying, a prolific artist. So again, when that happens, you have to be picky. You have to find the best thing. This is, I agree with you. I think this is the best of both worlds. This is a domestic sized, large scale, if that makes sense, because that's what you want. You want that monumentality. You want the physicality of her work. You want that beautiful, it's got an elegant form. Sometimes they can be the size of a room, you know, and they can have, she obviously did some white works, the gold works. I think the black works are just the iconic pieces. I think this is, you know, again, she's undervalued.
Undervalued. I think 1.5 is her auction record.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
Crazy.
Yeah.
My message always to clients, not every artist has a good day, right?
Mm.
And so when you look at Nevelson, I mean, there are several, you know, that are, you know, I don't think the structure is quite right, but this one I think does have it all. And I think we should all be focusing on Nevelson. All right, so I'm just, you know, obviously I have my two brilliant colleagues here, but I just wanted to focus on a work that I think is very, very important, and that's David Hockney. Now we've talked about Katz. We just lost Thibaut. You know, these great painters of the 20th century living into the 21st century, and David Hockney, no doubt, is number one, number two most important artist, I believe, globally. And what I really love about this work, I mean, I think you could take this work and put it next to the work of George Washington that we're seeing for sale too, because what this is although he was not American, it's a patriotic painting. He was obsessed with the West, with America. He loved America. And when he looked at Thomas Moran's works of the Grand Canyon, he was blown away by how Thomas Moran depicted our great landscape. And that obviously influenced him on his depiction.
I mean, come on, he grew up in the 60s
Yeah.
in England.
Yeah,
I mean, come on. And then moved out to California. How could you not be completely inspired by the landscape, the sun, the sun, the sun, and to paint these kind of monumental, gorgeous things? It's something that you could dive into this picture. And like you can in the swimming pool.
Right.
It's diving into this landscape.
I mean, nothing against Matthew Wong, but how can you not look at this work with his little pointillist style and not think he's the master? I actually had a client looking at a Hockney and looking at another, ultra contemporary artist, and they actually thought the ultra contemporary artist influenced Hockney, and that's what we're seeing, which makes my heart cringe. But I think this is a terrific work. It kind of shows this innovation of how he kind of cut the canvases in new, interesting ways. And honestly, Hockney wasn't afraid to pick up an iPad either, and use technology in a way that's so fascinating. So we'll see how it does. Obviously, Hockney's works have sold more than many other artists in the market, and it's not a pool painting, but I do anticipate it to do quite well. So just a last few words for I'm going to first comments. I'm just going to go over to Morgan here. We see my advice here, but what's your last little tidbit you'd like to leave everyone with as they go into the auction?
I think of something that actually just kind of follows on from what you were talking about with the Hockney, which is, we're here to educate our clients. And so for someone who is interested in Matthew Wong, we're there to say, that's really interesting, but look where it all came back from. So education, talking to our clients, taking them around the art fairs, taking them around the auctions, telling those people to wait, to have patience, to wait for the right picture. That's really what we're here to do. And that's what, as you can tell, I think from this presentation, that we really enjoy doing. We could talk about this stuff for days, and we do, and that's what's great. But I think that's what's really important in the message I want to get across is there is a lot of art out there. This week, these 2 weeks show, we've got fairs coming soon. We've got Frieze. We had TAFE last week. You want to be selective. You want to find the right pieces. You want to do your homework. And you want us to be behind you, to really show, the importance of what you're getting and why and the value, and to be patient is a lot of time of it. And a lot of times we're telling clients, not this one, no, not that, and our colleague Guy Jennings always says that the best advice we ever give is no.
Yeah.
And it's an important part of the journey of collecting. It's an important part of art. It's that experience. So don't get necessarily carried away by the first thing you see. It's to feel that emotion, but then to go beyond it and to look behind it and to do all of that kind of the nitty gritty due diligence that you need. I mean, I'm a great example. I've fallen in love with pictures all the time. And then you look at them, you're like, oh, wait, that's not really in great condition. Right. So you always have to take a step back, and you always have to be careful about what you're doing, but not to dismiss the emotion and the excitement and the theater that the auction room can actually put forwards as well.
Elena, last bit of advice.
Exactly what Morgan said, and that whole idea of getting under the skin of an artwork, because I think that by understanding why the artist did what they did, it kind of gives meaning and kind of substance to the artwork, which then feeds into that kind of longevity that we all want to see for an artist and the market. This is something, I'm dealing with works that are 200 years old. It's so important because time always tells the quality and who is here to stay and whose work is really of substance. And the condition, absolutely very, very key. But I think really understanding deeply and passionately why this is important is one of the key pieces of advice I have.
I would also add, go to the auctions, see them in person. Don't buy, if you can avoid it at all costs, try not to buy from a JPEG. It's such a different experience when you see them in person. I'd quickly like to move forward. We have a few seconds. what's happening next. So can you give us a little insight into the Alana collection, which I know you both have been very, very involved in, and I'm absolutely
We're
obsessed.
absolutely remiss in not having a slide here of some of the images of the absolute masterpieces that Elena and I and other members of our team have been really privileged to handle on behalf of this client. It's some of the most important old master pictures to come to market. We have an incredibly contemporary El Greco portrait. These pieces are on view at Christie's. I'm hoping we can invite all of you people to some of the events that we're doing coming up here in New York and globally to see some of these important things. You know, we have an Orazio Gentileschi painting, which puts Mary Cassatt and the mother and child to absolute shame. You know, these are pieces that are so important. We're going back with the antiquities as part of this collection too. I mean, what date are we talking about?
I think 200 BC.
This is, you know, Elena and I are putting on our old academic hats to be working on this. But, you know, at the same time, Anita, you were asking about contemporary, having a Monet. And we think some of these pictures are so contemporary and so fundamental to what contemporary artists are looking at today, and the styles, the paint handling, and just the intent, the humanistic intent of what is behind all of these things. It's an important collection, and we're so privileged to be helping to bring it to market.
You know, when I looked at that David Hockney, in which perspective gets moved in all ways, and then you look at a gold ground painting in which perspective is completely thrown on its head, I think looking at that root of old master paintings is absolutely essential. Elena, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think, again, understanding the deep history and the meaning and the narratives around these works, I think they're so relevant to contemporary artists that are deeply influenced by them. It's that play with its surface and texture and perspective, the extraordinary mastery of putting these works together, the layers and layers of gold ground applied delicately. It's just so interesting to get behind the scenes and think about these very special objects that have survived 500, 600, 700 years.
To go back to the auctions this week, we're seeing a young painter named Anna Wayant, who has the first lot of every major evening sale. We saw a huge price, over $1 million last night at Christie's. Anna unashamedly is looking way back towards Old Master. She's looking back to the way that the paint is handled. She's looking back to the stylistic portraiture. She's looking back at Old Master still lifes. And, you know, we have a painting that's the Circle of Leonardo, that is a portrait of a woman. It's the most beautiful contemporary looking thing you've ever seen. I can't imagine why a collector of one would not be looking at the other and putting them together.
I would say it's essential that they look. It's the kind of the alpha and the omega. It's kind of the beginning of representation, you know, like that key Western representational art that, you know, central to everything that we're looking at today with our presentation.
So we have any questions in regards, did any questions come in? This one? Oh,
That was literally the one question.
wow. Okay. This is a question that
We're going well off piece here
I can't answer.
from the Old Master.
An NFT question. I wish I could answer it, but I actually don't.
What's the
have
question?
it. So what about Christie's NFT sale? The 1.38 million Rafiq Andol's living architecture.
Yeah, that
Would you
was.
love to jump off that bandwagon?
I generally would defer to one of our colleagues who's an NFT expert. Unfortunately, he's not on the panel with us today. But that was in the last lot of the evening sale last night at Christie's. They had, I'm just going to go off the back of my experience. This was a relatively strong estimate on this piece. They had 2 bidders only, but they did get it away. It's wonderful that they're still showcasing NFTs in the evening sales. I think this is something we are going to be continuing on. You know, it's a market that those of us in the hard object world struggle, which is why at Fine Art Group, we have an NFT specialist on board who can take our clients and kind of walk them from the beginning to the end and the future in this, because we do think that NFTs are here to stay.
Yeah.
You know, they're an important part of what collectors are looking at. You know, we don't just deal with artworks, much as we talked about a lot of artworks today. We have clients who are investing in collectibles. We have a client who's buying baseball cards, you know, there are all sorts of things that we do. And obviously on the valuation side of our business, we get involved in everything. What's that great phrase? Soup to nuts. You know, we really are helping our clients, as you say, you know, 360 degrees. So the NFTs, if you'd like more information about that, do not contact Elena, Anita, or myself, but contact our client, Greg. Our colleague, Greg.
And we do actually have every 2 weeks a newsletter blog that comes out that looks at the NFT market. And I'm sure he will opine on this along with the change in the cryptocurrency market. So thank you all. I'm so glad you could join us today. Enjoy the auctions, enjoy Freeze. And it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, Elena, for today. Really, really great. Thank you.